All right, gang, it is another week. We are here. We are excited. Holy cow, it is election week. We are waiting for all of this to see where it's going to go. We have no idea. I don't care what anybody says. I don't think anybody can actually predict what is going to happen here in the United States tomorrow. So it'll be really interesting. How are you?
I've seen graphs and charts going all sorts of different ways.
All
And
over the
I'm
place.
just glad that I'm going to go to bed around 6 p.m. Eastern time. And hopefully when I wake up Wednesday morning, it'll all be resolved.
That would be great, wouldn't it? Oh, folks, my name is Brenda Neckbottle. I am known as Brenda the HR lady. And to my here is Suzanne Lucas, also known as the Evil HR lady. And we are here to talk about current stuff, what we think is current stuff, what might be current stuff, and what we think might kind of happen in current stuff. Maybe.
We're talking about current stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, we're actually not going to talk about politics, though. Not that type of current
stuff. No, we don't do politics.
About things that are important to business currently, but we'll make our predictions for what happens after the election is over, because it's going to be very different depending on who wins.
So if we're making our predictions on what happens after, that's like going to buy a lottery ticket after the numbers were drawn.
No. I'm not talking about who wins the election prediction. I'm talking about 2021 forecasts.
I know, but that would have been good, man. I would have been a millionaire like that.
Yeah, man. There we go. Me too. But we're going to talk today about this perception that employees often have that HR doesn't support employees.
That's right.
And this is common. I mean, I picked my name, Evil HR Lady, precisely because of the bad reputation that HR has, and that how a lot of employees don't see us as being on their side.
Right. And I actually worked with a woman who was given the nickname the Grim Reaper because exactly that same reason. She was never supportive of the employee. The only time she actually came into our location was to terminate somebody. And that was the only time we ever saw her. So it wasn't good.
No, that type of thing isn't good. And I admit, as someone who held a Grim Reaper job for 3 years, I mean, that's exactly what I did. My name was on the termination papers for everybody for 3 years. And if you didn't know, if I was the only HR person you knew, then you would think that's all that we did. It was a major company. We had, 500 HR people, but my name was on all the termination papers. And I could see how that, kind of it's scary if I walk into your office. Fortunately, people didn't know what I looked like.
Yeah.
So I was safe to go to the cafeteria. But there's a lot of times when the stuff that we do behind the scenes can come across to employees as not being very supportive of the employees, even though that's not our intention. And also, our primary focus is what is best for the business as a whole. Right. And sometimes that means telling an employee to knock it off. Sometimes it means telling a manager to knock it off. But it's rare that anybody not directly involved in the conversation sees any of that happening. It's as one of my friends, Kate Bishop, who's an employment lawyer and an HR consultant, says, good HR is like the CIA. If they do everything right, you never know they were there. Right. You only know that they're there when things go bad.
That's pretty good. I like that.
I keep using it. I keep quoting her because it's just really very accurate.
Yep.
And so naturally, employees only see the bad things. They don't see all the behind the scenes. They don't see the hours we spend coaching a manager. They don't see us sitting there building these plans for training and development. They just see, why do I have to go to sexual harassment training again? This is such a pain in the neck. They don't see that, well, you have to go to sexual harassment training because the state government mandated that everybody has to go through sexual harassment training.
Yep.
They just see it as us sitting in our, offices being like, what can I do to make everybody unhappy? And that's not what we do.
That's not how it works. And the thing is that we have rules and policies in place because somebody has done something that requires them to be there.
And this is true. This is true because somebody will come up with
creative
something. Yeah.
They're pretty creative. They're good.
They really, really can be. And reactionary HR isn't the way I like to do HR, but sometimes it ends up that way. Just so many things that you just, anyway, the point is sometimes employees see HR as being really anti-employee when they're not. Yep. And there have been times when an employee has come to me and said, my manager is always picking on me. They're always criticizing me. They're a real bully. And I'm like, oh, okay. So tell me a little bit more. And then as the employee opens up and starts to speak, well, I keep coming in late and my boss keeps getting mad at me.
5 minutes.
It's only 5 minutes. And, I'm queen of flexibility, but some jobs have to be done on time. Yep. Have to. And in a retail environment, that's one of those. So the boss wasn't being mean or nitpicky just for the heck of it. The boss was being mean and nitpicky because this person couldn't manage to get their behind to work on time. Now, did that person walk away from me saying, what a supportive HR person that was? She really understood my point of view. Or did he walk away going, I can't believe she told me to stop my whining and get to work on time? And I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. But I could see someone in that situation saying HR isn't supporting the employee. They're taking the side of the manager. And I'm always in favor of looking for a solution. Well, why is it that you're late? Is it because you're taking the bus and the bus schedule is such that you can either be an hour early or 5 minutes late? Well, then let's change your schedule. Yeah. But if it's just that, I don't know, I slept in and I'm, getting caught in unexpected traffic that happens every single day, that's.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of what we do is to help both the employees and the employer, which could be the manager or the leader or whatever, figure out what are the options. I mean, that's like the biggest thing that I see that we do. And sometimes the option is in the best interest of the employee, and sometimes the option is in the best interest of the employer. Kind of depends on the situation. If the employer hasn't done enough to cover their tracks to make sure that disciplinary action is in fact properly documented, then you know what? Err on the side of the caution and, just work on getting that done. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're erring on, that we're, hitting on the side of the employee. What we're doing is we just want to make sure that if we do have to execute something, that we've got enough in place. And that just means a little bit more time. Sometimes, though, that can exasperate the situation even more. We've got a problematic employee that we're not prepared to terminate. HR, we're going to be conservative when it comes to recommending our risk. And so if we don't have enough documentation, we know we don't have enough documentation, and we think that this person might cause a problem, then we have the problematic person hanging around longer. They continue to get aggravated. leaders get aggravated, employees get impacted. And sometimes we all just have to kind of deal with it until we get through it. But the goal that HR has, especially when it comes to disciplining employees, is to convert undesired behavior into desired behavior. That's all we really want to see happen.
I think that's really, really accurate. We just want to see, I love that phrase, to convert undesired behavior into desired behavior. As a general rule, we don't really care so much about who is right. We just want everybody to be doing their jobs, and we want everybody to be following the law. And sometimes it can look like that law is coming down in favor of one group or another group. And for every employee that comes to complain that HR is on the management side, I can find you a manager that's complaining that HR is always taking the employee side. Because how many managers have you had to say to them, no, you can't do that? Or you have to give this person an accommodation under the Americans with Disabilities Act. That's what that law is there for. This is the situation that it applies. No, you can't punish someone because she needs to take a maternity leave, or she got pregnant, or you hired this woman, she starts on her first day, she says, guess what? I'm 5 months pregnant. Yes, that's frustrating because you wanted someone that was going to be there and not have to take a leave of absence after 4 months. But the law is very, very clear on that. And so those managers are going to come back saying, why are you taking the employee side? And a lot of laws are really tipped towards the employee's favor. And I think that's how it should be for the most part. I'm okay with that. But there are things that are tipped towards the employer's favor. And of course, at-will employment is tipped towards the employer's favor. And I am a big fan of at-will employment.
Yeah. And, too, is that sometimes managers maybe not necessarily feel that you're not doing enough that you're erring too much on the side of the employee. It maybe not be that, but sometimes they'll claim that. But what they're really trying to say is, I don't feel like you are doing enough to help me through my problem. You're only focusing in on protecting the company to the point where, look, I've got serious issues and I don't always know what I'm doing as far as HR goes because that's not their job. But, they may not have done a good enough job putting documentation in place, or they may not have done a great job of getting HR involved. And then they kind of, feel like their life is burdened a little bit more either because of that oversight or that naivete. But when you have to tell them that, we have to hang on for a little while longer, that exasperates their issue. And that's a person you also don't want to build animosity against in the company. That's a good challenge for HR people to take on, is how do you help a manager understand that no is also in their best interest as well.
And that is something that is a special skill, I think, that we need to be able to communicate not only the yes or the no, but the why and how this benefits the business. Why is this important? And that can be something that is kind of difficult, especially when it can get a little bit complicated. And some things are not just this cut and dry. Like some things are cut and dry. Like you have to pay people for all hours worked. That's it. that is just it. But where exactly you're drawing the line on what's acceptable behavior and what's unacceptable behavior, I mean, that's something that ends up in courts a lot of times. Like what and I hear people saying, oh, well, I can't fire that person because, and then they list something that's a protected class. And it's like, no, that's not the case. You can fire anybody. It's just, why are you firing that person? You can't fire them because, and there's that whole thing of what you like to say is what you do for one, you do for all, which we slightly disagree on. But in this case, if we've treated this person this way and that person another way, they're similarly situated, they're different race, they're different gender, they're different religion, whatever, that's not going to go over well if somebody decides to sue.
So I want to clarify the what you do for one, you do for all situations. So let me help people understand what exactly I mean by that. So if you have an attendance policy, and this is probably the best example that is out there because it's the one example that is commonly enforced in an unequal manner. So you have an attendance policy, and let's say for hypothetically, you guys happen to have in your attendance policy, when I don't recommend you do this, but you just happen to have it in there because I need to come up with an example. And that is that after, what a company considers is excessive absenteeism as of like 5 absences in a month. Okay. Which is excessive. All right. There's no doubt about that. But here's where what you do for one, what you do for one, you do for all comes into place is that if you have an employee who is absent, you have employee A and employee B, and you have employee A who's absent 5 times out of the month. You have employee B that's absent 5 times out of the month. Only employee B is coached on their attendance. That is where the misalignment of what you do for one, you do for all comes into place. If you are not unilaterally, if you're not exercising, conversations, disciplinary action, or whatever it is for similar based situations. Now, the circumstances are going to be a little bit different. But if you are addressing B only for attendance issues and not A, and oh yeah, by the way, A is a 42-year-old Caucasian male, B is a 58 Black woman. Now you've got disparity. Now your managers are not doing the appropriate thing, and if HR is not aware of this, it's going to be a pretty hard conversation. So if you have attendance issues, then yes, if you have issues that come up, sexual harassment, hostile work environment, and if you discipline one, you're setting a precedence, which means that you have to take the similar action or course of set of action to determine an outcome for everybody. That's what I mean by what you do for one, you do for all. It's not put the pickle here, HR. It's not it at all. It just means that you have to appropriately respond and address each situation. You just can't sweep some of it under the rug because it's hard.
And that not sweeping things under the rug because it's hard is very important.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people do want to sweep things under the rug because it's hard. Or, I have dealt with people just like crossing their fingers and hoping someone quits.
Yep.
And instead of documenting the poor behavior, providing coaching, putting them on a PIP, a performance improvement plan.
That hurt.
Well, that was a tough one.
That was a hard one.
You just cross your fingers and hope that this person decides to quit. And so many people do that.
Yeah.
So many people do it.
Or they don't address it because they don't know what to do. But nonetheless, whatever action you take, especially if it's your first time, you're setting precedents. And you have to adhere to your precedents.
And if you don't know what to do, and you have a competent HR person, go ask her. Because even if she doesn't know exactly what to do, she'll sit down and help you make out a plan, because it's in everyone's best interest that you come to a solution. Mm-hmm. And as Brenda said before, we just want to fix behavior. We want bad behavior to become good behavior. And sometimes that's going to involve sitting down and coming up with a plan. And just, when we go back to something as simple as an attendance policy, there may be a reason. Like I said, there may be a situation where someone's coming in 10 minutes late every day because their bus options are get there an hour early or get there 10 minutes late. Yeah. And it can certainly be a reasonable solution to just change their schedule. Sometimes that's not going to be a reasonable solution. If that person's job is to unlock the door of the store, that's not reasonable.
Right.
But sometimes that solution can be reasonable. Sometimes someone's really struggling because of something personal going on in their lives. They have a sick child, they're going through a divorce, they're having financial difficulties. And while HR is not, a doctor, or lawyer, priest, or therapist, we're pretty good at lending a listening ear and directing you to the employee assistance program, which can help you. And employee assistance programs are my favorite thing in the whole world, and people don't use them as much as they should.
No. And HR professionals don't teach people how to use them either. And, they just say, well, here's our EAP. It's like, well, okay, so how does this work? Give them a little bit of education. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but everything you're saying is absolutely right.
That little bit of education is so important, because the employee may view me saying, well, here's the EAP phone number, give them a call, as, oh my gosh, why isn't she supporting me? When in reality, what I mean is, I can't give you financial advice. That's something I cannot do legally. I cannot do it. I mean, one of the things that was pounded into my head when I was being the Grim Reaper is that the company that we worked for had pensions. It was a big old company with pensions. And the people, when they left, they had the option of taking a lump sum or taking annuity, blah, blah, blah. And of course, people would ask me. And my boss, the labor and employment lawyer, was like, don't you dare ever think about answering. The answer is always, you need to consult your financial planner. But so many people would ask me, well, what would you do? What is everybody else doing? And I'm like, don't ask me, ask your financial planner. So when I say, here, call the EAP, in my mind, I'm going, this is a situation that I can't help you with, either legally or morally or ethically. I can't help you with it. Here is somebody that can.
Right.
And the employee is walking away going, why won't she help me? And I'm going, I just helped someone. And so I really think that communication, as an HR, we need to say, I cannot give you financial advice. I cannot tell you what to do with your pension. I cannot say whether you should take the lump sum or you should go into annuity. But here is this phone number. You call it. They will hook you up with a financial planner. And that financial planner will sit down with you, go over all your options, and he can advise you on what to do. I cannot.
Right.
The same thing if you're going through a divorce. I can't fill out your divorce paperwork for you, but I can direct you to the EAP, which can help you find an attorney. Right. And so it really needs to be a communication on HR's part, not just call the EAP, call the EAP, call the EAP, but call the EAP because they can do this. They will keep it confidential. No one will know that you called because you feel like you need therapy. It'll all be confidential, and they'll get you the help that they need. So really, it's that communication part. As HR, we need to make sure that the people understand, I am supporting you, maybe not in the way that you wanted. You wanted me to walk you through all of your problems. I can't. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a lawyer. But I can get you to someone that can.
And, part of that too is that you can always ask the question, and somebody says, well, I need to know, what to fill out here for this, this, and this. And then you can come back with, okay, so help me understand. So what are you expecting out of me? Like, what is it that you expect me to help you with in the grand scheme of things? So I think if you understand where the employee is coming from and then educate them, it's like, here's what I can do for you, just like Suzanne was saying, but here's where I can't help you because of, one of three reasons. However, I think it's the right conversation, setting up the appropriate expectation, and then reminding them that, although, in this arena, you're a little bit limited capacity, you are there for them and that you maintain that level of approachability. Remind them that you're still there. You have to just, sometimes you have to stay in your own playground.
And I think sometimes this can be really tough because I've never met an HR person that had tons of free time. And there's always a lot going on.
Well,
And
I did, but she was terrible.
she shouldn't have had tons of free time.
Oh,
If you're doing your job right, there's always something that you're doing. And so sometimes we can be a little bit short with people. And really, for the health of the company, when we're talking about we want to make the company as successful as possible, having employees know that HR does have their back,
yeah.
but is also going to draw very clear lines. Like,
Yep.
I support you, I want you to succeed, but you will not make those racist jokes ever again. It is not funny. You cannot do it. This is my line in the sand. No. But I want to change your behavior because I want you to stay and I want you to be successful. I don't want to fire anybody. Well, that's not entirely true. I don't want to be in a position where I have to fire someone.
Right.
So please listen to me and what I have to say. And this also, if managers wait too long to bring HR in, it can get so messy.
It usually gets horribly messy. Horribly, horribly messy. I had a thought.
Okay.
And it kind of went away.
Uh-oh.
I got so enthralled with what you were saying on something, I can't remember what it was.
I'm sure it was very important.
It may not have been if it went away. Oh well. We'll just keep moving on. It might hit me up. I might wind up sidelining us a little bit later, but probably not. We probably have already covered it. I just wanted to repeat it. Who knows? Who knows? But those are good conversations to have. And we've got a week coming up. We kind of talked about what we were going to talk about today. We didn't kind of talk about it. We actually did. And what we wanted to talk about, we actually scrapped because everybody's talking about what to expect this week. And, look, just all we can say right now is just buckle up. That's all. We have no idea how things are going to go. We don't want to speculate. We don't want to go down that road. But you know what? Today is the day to start thinking about how are you going to deal with this upcoming week and what kind of conversations are you going to have? Everything that we were talking about just a few minutes ago, making sure that expectations are being upheld to, and you're able to provide people the right resources, because it's going to be a tense week. There's no doubt about it. However this election flies, it's going to be a tense week. And so we are going to save, like we said earlier, save our conversations on that. But that doesn't mean that you're not still dealing with it while we're not talking about it.
Yeah, and in terms of it's going to be a tough week, it's going to be tough regardless of who wins. And even if you think that everybody in your office agrees with you 100%, they don't. And so there will be some people who are upset when you're happy and some people that will be happy when you're upset. And especially in HR, you don't ever want to be in a position where an employee won't come to you because they think that you don't respect them because of their political views.
Right.
And so HR, and this is something I see all over Twitter because I'm like followers with a zillion HR people. So many HR people spouting their political opinions incredibly loudly. And they're not doing it as employees of the company. But if their employees see it and they've said, I think everybody that's voting for candidate X is horrible, horrible person. How are your employees going to trust you again? And it's really too late to talk about that because the election's tomorrow.
Yeah.
But keep that in mind. So come Wednesday morning, you're going to have some people sad and some people happy. Guaranteed.
Social proof is everything right there.
Yeah, sure.
All righty. So every week we try and throw a zinger out at one another to see who can get creeped out the most I think I'm creeping Suzanne out more than anything else
She
with
loves
our
to do that.
with our questions. And are you ready for your question this week?
Sure, I'm ready.
Okay. I had an employee call in sick, and a coworker caught her at a restaurant at lunch. I think she should come and tell me as her boss. What do I do?
Okay, so coworker, we'll call her Jane, calls in sick.
Yep.
And someone else sees her at a restaurant.
Yep.
That's the deal. What does the manager do?
Yep.
Well, first of all, I would want to know, is this someone that you've had a problem with before?
Mm-hmm.
And if this is a person with no problems, no attendance issues, whatever, I would let it go, because there's plenty of times when, like, you wake up with like a death headache or you have a migraine or something and you call in sick and you're not contagious and you're feeling better by noon. That could absolutely be a part of it. It could also be that this person is applying for new jobs, and you don't have another option for taking a day off without a lot of warning. You require people to give their vacation requests far in advance, and that's a policy issue. But if this is someone that's had an attendance issue, I would think that the manager would want to have a chat and say, hey, Jane, you called in sick yesterday, and I hear you went to lunch. Can we talk about this? And she may have a good explanation. She may not. It's kind of sticky because I don't like prying in people's days off.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't. And it's, being at a restaurant is different. If you'd said, I saw her at the grocery store, I'd just be like, whatever, because sick people got to eat. And
Mm-hmm.
where else you're going to get your NyQuil. So, but a restaurant does seem a little bit more like they're misrepresenting. So I'd be a little bit more cautious, but I just don't like it. That's why if the person has not been a problem employee, I'm going to err on the side of letting it go. But if this is part of a pattern, then I'm going to talk about it.
So I've always been on the philosophy that so long as they have PTO, it's their time earned. Yes, it can be an inconvenience for you, but if they still have PTO and they don't have any mega patterns of calling in sick, it's not even a topic that you should bring up.
Yeah, that's where I am. If it's
Yeah.
not a pattern and they got the time.
Yep. It's theirs to burn. Now, if they've burned up all of their PTO and all of a sudden you hear that they're out and about. And the reason why I say not to get involved until their PTO, because the PTO or their vacation or accrual or whatever it is that you want to call it, that's the threshold right there, right? That's the same expectation. What you do for one, you do for all, that you hold everybody to, is that they, whoever's entitled to earn it gets it. And they can use it because it's a benefit that you as the organization have agreed to provide them. And they are free to use it whenever, unless you've got, you're in a situation to where like it's Christmas and you work retail and it's all hands on deck and somebody calls in and it's going to happen. What are you going to do? If they're not doing it, they're only going to have so much that they can use unless you have an unlimited PTO plan. But you don't know what's going on. And you can wind up as an employer focusing way more in on why Jane Eyre is out having lunch with her husband or child or whatever, and lose sight of what it is that you need to do at work. In other words, I used to have a client that they would get so wrapped up over little things like this that it would take away their time from focusing on building their business. And they would get everybody all razzed up about it. They would start running around asking their buddies and their friends and the people that they talk to. Stop doing that. That doesn't benefit any. It's one day of PTO. It's one day of absenteeism. Let it go.
Yeah, and sometimes I gotta say, mental health days are a thing. Stress is real, and
That is.
sometimes someone may call in sick because they mentally need a break, and that is just as legit as throwing up.
Yep.
Um, and
Absolutely.
and you know what? Saying I am stressed to the max, and I need to take a day off and go to the spa, that's not socially acceptable. So we say, I'm not feeling well. And
Yep.
everybody assumes that means you're in bed. And like you were saying, if the PTO is there, this is why we give PTO
Yep.
and why we give people sick days. And if it's not being a problem, if they're not pushing the boundaries, then that's an issue. And I would like to see more companies say, you know what, you can use your sick days for a mental health day if you need it. Because sometimes, let me tell you, 2020, you may not have noticed, it's been kind of stressful for some people.
Yep.
Just a few. And sometimes you need to be like, I gotta shut down.
Yep.
I need to sit down.
We all have to manage it. So
Yeah.
Good question. Cool.
All right, here's your question. And it's a little weird on the starting. So this person emailed me and said, I really enjoyed your article. How do I get a manager to be a better leader? Which you can get judged from the title what that's about. And she says, there was some really great advice there. However, where it fell short for me was, where would I go to pull all these resources for my people who need this training? I have a formal education, but that doesn't always work, nor is it necessary. Where do you turn to for resources in learning, communication, leadership, etc.? And I don't expect you, Brenda, to like pull out a list out of your hat, but like, what are some things that you would look for?
Well, first off, you visit BrendaTheHRLady.com and TheEvilHRLady.com.
.org. I'm .org.
That's right. That's right. She's a .org. My apologies. And reach out to us because we can actually help you with that one-on-one. But realistically, I think the big thing is that, I mean, because this can be a huge swath. I mean, like you can really take a big, long, deep swipe out of this one. But first and foremost, I think you have to know what exactly it is that you need to address. Is it, you mentioned communication earlier, right? A little bit ago, but could it also be, competency? Could it be business acumen? I think if you don't know exactly and break down, because leadership is one of those things that you know it when you see it, but not everybody defines it the same way. It's like teamwork, right? And I think we've done this before. I don't like using the word teamwork because it confuses people. So if we were to look at all the elements that go into teamwork, and Suzanne, you pick out what's the most important one word thing to you in teamwork, what would that be?
One word for teamwork?
No. What's the most important element of teamwork and one thing? What's the most important thing about teamwork to you?
For me, the most important thing about teamwork is that the team trusts each other.
Okay, so trust, right? Yeah. So my number one most important thing in teamwork is that everybody should be competent. Okay. So we don't have the same expectation of teamwork, right? Somebody else could be, they show up. Same thing with leadership. And, are you looking at servant leadership? Or are you looking at laissez-faire leadership? Are you looking at autocratic? They all have different meanings to it. So I think you have to be very clear on what you want leadership to look like. And then once you get that definition in place, drill down and start teaching on the components of it, right? So if you want your leaders to be phenomenal communicators, that's a huge thing. Then you have to figure out, okay, so what kind of communication does that look like? Set that expectation, build those people up so that they can execute the way you want. In my early years when I worked at CarMax, that was the one thing that I was the most impressed was how every manager communicated expectations, not in the same way, but effectively. And a lot of that came because of their training. And I adopted that moniker. I adopted those philosophies, and I adopted their approach, and it works. And I still use it today. And so, but that was a unified front. That was what the company had deemed important as part, in other words, what leadership, or what under the context of leadership looked like, what communication was defined as. Everybody lived up to it. Bad managers, I mean, it took a long time to become a manager anyway, because they just don't bring you in off the street. But everybody had to go through that. And that was a part that if you weren't effective at it and helping people to gain buy-in and all the things that go into communication, you didn't progress into a management role. It was cut and dry. You had to work on your skills.
Yeah, I had never really thought about your point there about, what does it mean? What does leadership mean? What does teamwork mean to different people? And you're right. It's absolutely a different thing. And I was thinking, as you're talking about CarMax, and they had this specific thing that they wanted all managers to do. And I look back to my days at Wegmans, and you didn't get promoted there either until you had worked the floor, you had worked in every department. We're not going to make you, a store manager until you know how to run a cash register and how to buy produce and how to do all of these things. And we're not going to make you an accounting manager until you've done the same thing. And that's why they are always in the top 10 of the top 100 companies to work for, because they have defined leadership as knowing every aspect about the business. And you didn't get to be an HR manager until you had worked seafood. And I worked seafood, I worked the deli, I did shelf stocking, I did produce. I did all of that to sit in a cube and do data analysis. That was my job, data analysis. But that's right. That's how they defined leadership for them.
And if you're wondering, like, how do I get all of this? Well, I'm going to show you a book. It has nothing to do with either one of us, but this was a tool that I use. It's called the Successful Manager's Handbook. Now, this is an older version. I buy these used and I give them away. And what it is that this is not a book to read cover to cover. And I've talked a lot about this over the years, is that you find there's like 21 different chapters, 25, 26, something like that, different subjects in here that you can go to. So like listening attentively, writing effectively, establish relationships, speak with impact, foster open communication. All right, there's 28. I lied. Learn continuously, show adaptability, manage change. And when you go to that individual chapter, and in the beginning of the chapter, what you'll find is that there's a section that says, in this chapter, we'll cover the following areas right here, just like this. Okay. And then towards the end of the chapter, and it has these little green footnotes in the margins. Well, footnotes really aren't in the margins, but has notes in the margins. And at the end of it, in green lettering, in the very last page of the chapter, there is these green tips, and it's called Tips for Coaches. But essentially what it is it just kind of these summary talking points. Like this one was called Manage Globally, and one of the globally, and this one was have people find out how home country policies are carried out in other regions. Ask people to describe how their mindsets have been shaped by and reflect their culture. Excellent material in here. And anytime I had a problem, like if I wanted to work on something that I was not good at, like I was not good at getting buy-in because I never understood the concept of it. I grew up in an environment where it's like, you do as I say, not as I do, right? And and so, I didn't have really good mentors until I, met Tom, and then Ron and Brian after that. And so, Ron got me that book. He bought me the book. And anytime I had I knew I was going to have a conversation with somebody, I would go to the book and I would read a section that I thought I was going to struggle with. And I did much better at it. So, but that's because I clearly defined what it was that I wanted to absorb or what I needed to learn. So that was a huge, lesson in building my leadership.
That's such good advice. I'm gonna have to get myself a copy of that book.
It's a great book. And then there's another one that's called the Successful Executives Handbook. But if you want to just work on communication and basic leadership, the Successful Manager's Handbook, any version, it's all similar to content. They just update it, but it's phenomenal. I think it's written by 12 different authors, and it's just really, really good.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So
I left her speechless.
That never happens.
She didn't know what to say.
She didn't.
Anyway,
but I will say something, which is next week on Monday, we have something coming up.
Yes, we do. We do. We're so excited about this. It is actually, let me pull this up here real quick. Let me get rid of the little tag thing right here. Our virtual HR summit. We are all going to be talking. This is something that I'm hosting under best practices, and so this is the last time I'm going to be doing a free summit. But we've got fantastic speakers. Suzanne is going to be kicking it off. Do you want to tell them a little bit about what you're speaking on?
Yes, I am talking about HR in the age of social media, and as I have been preparing this, I'm like, wouldn't it be nice to go back to when we didn't have social media?
Right.
It was a lot easier back then. But that's what we're talking about now. That's what I'm going to be talking about is HR in the age of social media.
Yep.
And it's becoming more and more complicated.
Yep, it is. And so Suzanne's going to be joining us live from Switzerland. And then next on Tuesday, and we're only doing this 1 hour a day for the full week. And next is Tay Nelms. Tay and I go back to when we were kids. And she's got an amazing story. She's a Cambodian. She's a survivor of the Khmer Rouge and just, done extremely well in life. And so she's actually be talking about engagement. She's in Hawaii. So we're going to be recording hers because her session would normally be at like 4 a.m. And she has twin boys in school, which they have to study at home. So we're going to record her session. And then Wednesday, I'm going to come in and speak. I'm going to give you some talking about, what's coming up this year and how you can develop your, what goes into the body of an HR and how you can develop yourself over time. And then Steve Watson, awesome guy. Matter of fact, this week he's invited me to speak on his podcast. So Steve loves to solve the mathematical problem of how people can save money on their company benefits programs. And in this year, I'm actually in the process of doing open enrollment for a client right now. I can tell you it's hard and difficult across the board because all of the rates were already predetermined prior to COVID. So everybody's getting an increase, whether they anticipated it or not. So how are some of the things that companies in small, medium, and large plans can figure out? How do they save that money? So he loves that conversation. So he's going to talk about the top 5 benefit hacks in HR for 2021 coming up. And then Friday, we're going to be wrapping up again. I'm going to jump back in and talk to you guys about what is coming down the pike for 2021 and how to get ready and strategize and plan in a time of ambiguity. So we got some pretty cool stuff. We also are carrying on our conversations continuously in our groups. And would you like to share your group?
You betcha. So hop on over to Evil HR Lady. And one super big benefit of Evil HR Lady, it's on Facebook. You're welcome to join, is that we are politics free. So if we're talking politics, we are a politics free zone, which won't be as important come Wednesday, fingers crossed. But for the next 48 hours, if you need a place on the internet that was politics free, come on over. And we're HR people and business people and employees that are all interested in that. And we support and we ask questions and we share really funny memes.
Absolutely. And over my group is the Next Gen Women in HR Facebook group. And we are a fast growing community. We're almost at 230 members, and we just started a year ago in January, not quite a year ago. And everybody is in the group has been trying to figure out how to move forward, how to put one foot in front of the other. We too are also a non-political group. We don't allow politics in, but we also only permit HR people or people who are pursuing human resources. We don't have employees or anything like that. So that way we can have these kind of difficult conversations. We do all sorts of, like free events, give out good information, updates on what's going on out in the world. I know I just mentioned it when we were talking about what to say today. Pennsylvania District Court actually ruled against somebody who was trying to state that wearing your mask was against the disabilities. Just was a discrimination against disability, and federal court ruled no, it actually is not, and probably because it's in a pandemic. But so yeah, it's getting interesting.
It's getting interesting.
So this is none of this is going away. We're already seeing news articles. I mean, the media is already telling us that we're going to be shuttered up, and the highest rate of infection is going to hit Thanksgiving. So these are two great places for you to come and figure out how you can get the kind of support that you need in order to be successful. And yeah, I'm awfully chatty today, aren't I?
Hey, that's what we do. That's
but we're a show
on this video show.
That's right. So
our big paycheck.
Wouldn't be a real HR show without waka waka waka, right? God, jeez. Anyway, so look, guys, we're here to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for joining us. You can find us. We've flashed our sites again, and we will talk to you next week after the election, and it'll be interesting topic.
There you go. All right, see you next week.